Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making it out. It was misty before, but now it's cleared up. Thanks, everyone. We're going to get started here in a couple of minutes. Let's see. Actually, if I could get the agenda back up on the screen, Brendan, that'd be great. Uh, yeah, so I was just going to walk everyone through the Wikipedia Data Design Challenge 2017, first year, first time for everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. Yeah. All right. So, yes, today, March 4th, we set up. Everyone made it on time, it seems. And here I am welcoming you. We'll have our keynotes. Then we're going to do some tutorials where we'll sort of ramp you up on some technologies before you settle into your ideas and teams and so forth. We got some lunch, got some team building, and then we're going to hack. So, or design. I mean, I'm not sure what the verb is there, the parlance, but I'm happy to learn. So, yeah, let me talk for a minute just about why the Wikipedia Data Design Challenge exists. So, basically, Wikipedia is this huge community of tens of thousands of content creators, editors, researchers, and fact checkers. This amazing community of people who are dedicated to this task. Uh, and then we have the Wikimedia Foundation, who's dedicated to running the wikis. But really, like it's like a top 5 website in the world. But we're talking about 200 employee organization. There's only so much it can do. So we need to also have a community of people who are dedicated to helping that community of editors get recognition for all of the hard work they've put into getting those facts and verifiable information into this like huge repository of human knowledge. So, with those words in mind, basically, I want to invite our first speaker. His name is Maciej Siglowski. Hopefully, I got it right. Basically, he's been a great voice for sort of this concrete kind of community building and change in my life, and I think that he'll be a great inspiration for you as well. All right, everybody, thank Maciej.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm going to try to be high energy, Mache, because it's Saturday morning. And this is why I was brought in. Uh, but it's not easy. It's not easy. I want to ask how many people here are born outside the United States like I was? I'm not surprised. And how many came to the United States when they can still remember coming to the US? All right. So a smaller group. I came when I was 6 years old from Poland, sort of by accident. One of my earliest memories of this whole process was going to say the Safeway supermarket, and to a kid from the Eastern Bloc, that was a really like kind of a heavy thing to have to see. This astonishing display of American abundance. It was hard for me to understand how there could be so much wealth in the world, and what particularly got me was the breakfast cereal aisle. We don't really do the concept of breakfast cereals in Poland, certainly not back then. But here was an entire aisle of uh, of food that was optimized to speak to the deepest part of my kid's soul. Cartoon characters telling me to eat sugar, just in a wall of it to the end. So I have this vivid memory of that, and a lot of other like coming to America moments. And every weekend when my mom and I went to the supermarket, she would give me a quarter, and I would go play Pac-Man. Being a socialist kid, I thought the goal of Pac-Man, I thought that Pac-Man was trapped in a maze and he was trying to find his friends. Uh, and you had to steer him over to his friends who were looking for him. And so my games didn't last very long, as you can imagine. So, of course, the correct way to play Pac Man is that you consume as much as possible while running from the ghosts that relentlessly pursue you. So, it's a valuable early lesson in what it means to be an American. And I'm glad I absorbed it. Uh, and like looking back at it, it taught me that technology and ethics are not really easy to separate. They took a very sweet socialist kid and threw him into the crucible of 1981 era arcade games and the harsh lessons they teach about the world. So that technology that ran these arcade games now permeates every aspect of our lives, and it's still really annoyingly full of ethics. You can't like get the ethics out of the technology and just enjoy it in peace. It keeps cropping up on you, and uh, I'm annoyed by it, and I'm sure you are as well. And our ethical agenda as an industry hasn't really been much different from Pac-Man. We try to consume as much as we can, as fast as we can, while running from the various ghosts that are chasing us. The closest thing that we have to a credo in the industry is the famous move fast and break things, which, you know, it kind of worked for a while. It's like when you're a teenager and you rebel against your parents all the time and you're kind of really socking into them. And then there's a terrifying moment, hopefully in your teens, when you realize that your parents are just people like you who are trying to make their way through an uncaring world. And they're not even really that powerful and they kind of need your help and support. And that's part of growing up. I think as an industry, we've also realized that we can't just knock down every single institution and expect flowers to grow and then a beautiful forest. Things have consequences, and we're starting to see a lot of them. We're running out of things to break, in fact. So one reason that I think we're here is to figure out how this new institution that we've created can kind of buttress some of the old ones that are so much under threat. And then a second reason that hopefully we're here is specific to the web. And it's this big question of whether the web is going to be a creative medium like what we kind of got used to during its flowering, or if it's going to become a creative medium the way that video games and movies are, where there's a small specialist cast that can create this sort of stuff, and most people's job is to consume it. You have an industry where you require years of training and you can do one tiny piece of it, and then there's a pipeline of specialists, none of whom understand the whole, but together they can create these kind of experiences that everybody else just looks at. And there are already people that claim that no one single person can possibly understand the entire web stack, the technologies in a web page. These are usually the same people that create 8 megabyte text experiences that have 200 network requests per page. But it's possible that their view is going to win out at the end, and I'll just sound like a minimalist Luddite in my older years. Because most people now, they consume something that we just call content by looking at it on small screens that are hard to interact with. You usually interact with when you're in the subway or on the toilet. And we have this elaborate system for showing this stuff and making it fast and load quickly, and an entire infrastructure of caches and frameworks and hacks and add things to fund it with. And running the entire show for us is a set of algorithms that nobody really understands. Not because they're very difficult or complex, but because they're kind of a tangled hairball of stuff that it turns out if you throw enough data into, you can train them up to do kind of astonishing things, but without a great understanding of why that happens. Um, and they're really hungry for data. So the role of people in this consumption world is to be data factories. Everything you do is measured, you're supposed to interact with stuff, and then that gets taken in and then presented back to you in the form of a refined product where you consume it. It's a weirdly colonial feeling where you generate the raw materials, and then you're supposed to buy the finished goods from the experts that sell it to you. Here I have in my notes anecdote about my cat, which in retrospect is a bad thing to put in notes. My cat has done a lot. Let me think of the one I have in mind in particular. I lived in New York about 10 years ago, and my roommate, who was an even like a kind of the smartest person I ever met and a programming hero of mine, at one point called me over into the other room and said, "Hey, I trained your cat to do something cool." And he showed me that the cat would fetch this little like milk tab that he would throw. She would bring it over to him, and he would throw it, and she would do it, bring it back a couple of times until she got bored, like cats do, and went to sleep. And he kind of was really proud of this behavior. But over the next couple of days, I noticed that the cat would come play with him when it wanted to. Like my friend thought that he was training her to fetch, but she had trained him to become a cat toy. He would drop whatever programming task he had to do and just immediately like launch into this mindless repetitive behavior until the cat got tired of it. And I think of this every time I look at social media sort of stuff where we've told ourselves that we interact with this web world and train it to do whatever we want. We train Amazon to show us interesting books. We train Facebook what our likes and dislikes are. We train all these things and they serve us. But really, I think that they train us to click, engage, do whatever it is that these algorithms want. Not really nefariously, but just because that's the way the system works. When you ask a computer to become really good at making you interact with it, it takes that job seriously. And for better or worse, we've seen what happens when we have this world of everybody's a consumer and the computers are trying to get us to interact. They kind of they do bad stuff. They take us in radical directions. So keeping that in mind, I want to talk briefly about left turns and stupid ideas, which I think are the motor of progress on web stuff. And certainly the place we're here now represents a very, very stupid idea, which was anybody can edit anything and it'll somehow work out. And the fact that it does somehow work out is still surprising to me years and years after the fact. So the web was born from this series of stupid ideas. Uh, what usually happens is that someone has one, it turns out to work against all expectations, and then smart people from the entire industry come and try to codify it and figure out why it works and build things around it, and it kind of crystallizes until someone has another stupid idea and we repeat the cycle. So open source is a great example where the idea that like a Finnish grad student working in his spare time with a small team of ragtag misfits could dethrone Unix and bankrupt Sun Industries, and it seemed like a stupid idea, which in hindsight turned out to be an extremely effective way of creating these tools. And what happened after it was clear that it wasn't all that dumb is particularly interesting to me, where for a while it looked, and if you're old enough, you remember, it looked like it was going to be open source versus evil Microsoft in the world. Like that was the battle that was shaping up. Uh, and then everything took a left turn. Like it turned out that open source didn't really matter as much as we thought because it was going to be the question is not really who runs the software, but who has all the data. So, the battle was worth fighting, but it turned out that we have a whole different battle about whether the web is a centralized place or not, and whether if you're clicking on Google, you don't really care if the thing that you're clicking on is one of their open source libraries or their most proprietary algorithm, because it's still them versus you. So there's this whole other framing that we have now, and it seems like that's going to be the battle for the next few years to come. But soon things are going to take a weird left turn that we don't anticipate, and we're going to have a whole other mess on our hands. So I'm fascinated by this idea that dumb things that people try and then unexpected consequences rule us, and we never learn the lesson. We always think that we can anticipate. There's things on the back of the wall there that say like they extrapolate to 2030. What's the web going to be like, and what the demographics and other things are going to be like, and we do a really bad job of facing the future as the mystery that it is. So, like I said, right now it looks like this battle is between the giants of centralization versus the open web, which hopefully we represent. We saw some amazing failure modes last week in the centralized web. If anybody here runs Cloudflare in front of AWS, I feel really bad for you this week. First, Cloudflare spat out everybody's secrets into caches, God knows where on the internet, and then somebody literally typoed something into S3 and brought down the entire backing store for the web. Um, so we live in interesting times when this kind of thing can happen, but it's going to change in a way we don't predict. And I really I want to lobby for you to have stupid ideas this weekend. We had a really clear future in 1995 or so. Bill Gates wrote a book about it. We were going to have the information superhighway, and it was going to be through your TV, and you could buy books and programming and create your own newspaper and stuff like that. The really interesting thing to me about the information superhighway prediction was that it actually came true, but it only came true after we took a really long detour through the web and all the stuff that we loved and never imagined coming. And then 10 or 20 years later, we finally settled into this boring thing where you can actually, yes, you can buy things through your TV now and TV programs, but it's almost beside the point because there was this whole other thing in the middle. So I want to ask you to help create the other things in the middle. You know, wikis and Wikipedia are an inspiration to me because I was one of the loudest voices of mockery when I first saw this. And I remember how smug everybody was about the potential of a wiki. If you remember, Encarta used to come with your computer, and that seemed like the closest we would ever have to the ultimate source of human knowledge, Microsoft graciously giving us a free encyclopedia that fit on a CD. And then I forget the name of the project, but there was a bunch of professors who took a look at early Wikipedia and decided we need to build this, but with actual professors. And does anybody, what's that? Citizendium? Yeah. And I think there was another one too, because that doesn't ring a bell. This idea came up a lot that we need authority figures to create the authoritative encyclopedia. And all of those projects died in flames, which is also very surprising. And the stupid idea, just let anybody edit everything, turns out to be, in my mind, the greatest cultural accomplishment of the 20th century. Uh, Really, really shocking that it worked. So, what's the other stupid stuff we're not trying? We have too many smart people trying smart things. We really need the stupid stuff to happen. Um, And when I say stupid, it's really actually my shorthand for this creative impulse that I think is what ties together all these unexpected twists and turns in our online history. This desire to do cool things with other people and try it and see what happens, that results in really pleasant outcomes. And to me, it's weird that such an introverted industry where we're all hidden inside our computers, the stuff that comes out that's most meaningful is always about connecting people together and creating ways for them to collaborate and work and surprise each other, whether it's frivolous or whether it's deeply serious. That's where the cool stuff from the internet comes from. Um, so I'm here to cheerlead for the creative impulse, right? But we're also here in the shadow of something a lot darker, where we thought we lived in a world that, for all its cruelties and its injustices, was on a trajectory that was gradually heading someplace benign and nice. And that feeling is sort of gone. The range of imaginable futures for us, whether as people or as creatures of the internet, has expanded to an uncomfortable degree where we really don't know what might come even in the next couple of months. And the online tools that we loved and some of us have helped to build have become really effective tools of hatred and oppression. To me, the scariest thing is it's not a blind hatred or a stupid one. It's this intelligent, clever force that is full of vitality and has a lot of creative energy of its own that we're up against and didn't expect to see. At least I never did. And then just to put the cherry on this Saturday morning Sunday, the change is all taking place at a moment when our physical world around us is also changing permanently, probably beyond our power to control. And we all know that if we make it to 2030 or whatever is on the back wall, the main thing we'll remember about this time is that it is when everything changed about the climate, about the ecology. And this will be the thing that, if there is a future history, will be chapter one in that history. And yet, there seems to be like no way we can really connect to it, to bring it into the present moment, pay the attention to it that it needs. It seems to be happening on time scales and physical scales that are just too big for us to cope with. Um, so I'm here encouraging you to try stupid and frivolous things in the face of what seems to be kind of catastrophes in society and in the ecology. Because the one nice and reassuring thing about the future is that it never turns out quite like you see it. So even the dark vision that you might paint for yourselves, we're all going to go into and find out that we were wrong about something fundamentally important and that things took a sharp left turn. Uh, but we have to kind of help it along and make it happen. My grandpa had a really nice saying that said, he was a fatalist, but he believed you had to help your fate along. You couldn't just sit there and be swept into it. I also want to say that it's important that we not try to have too much faith in the power of facts and data in this fight. We can't really well actually our way out of the current situation, hope that just with enough enlightenment values, enough data, enough facts, beautiful maps and visualizations, we can persuade everybody to be a better and more reasonable version of themselves. Uh, the journalism professor Jay Rosen has this really beautiful point that he makes that if you're trying to convince somebody with facts and data, the first prerequisite of it is some sort of trust. And without that trust, no amount of persuasion, no amount of factual argument will help people harden in their positions. Um, One of our tragedies as people is that we're just basically savanna apes that rose way above our station. We got to like laptops and internet, and that's amazing. But we are fundamentally who we are, and we have to uh, face the fact that we're a social species. We have to heal these rifts between us before we can hope that the technology will solve any of these problems that we basically create for ourselves. I know this is a touchy-feely thing to say, but I'm also here to tell you that this is a fight. Like we need to win. We need to treat it as a fight. We're up against people who take everything that we've worked for granted and want to bring it crashing down. It's only people that grow up in Western societies where everybody is free of terrible childhood diseases that you see an anti-vaccination movement. And it's only in modern technological society that you see these really anti-enlightenment forces that take everything for granted getting, making such headway. It's just like the only people we know who are libertarians are probably rich kids who grew up in a stable and war-free environment. So you take for granted the thing that is all around you all the time, but we have to not take it for granted and fight for it. And it's okay to try to understand alternate perspectives, but you understand them so that you can beat them into dust and then fire that dust into space and hope that I say the part about firing it into space to try to enlist Elon Musk and his ilk so that they're behind us. So we really need to have this clear goal that we want to have a sunny, happy community, but a community that recognizes that we're in a fight and that we have a big role to play in it. One final thing I want to say is just specific to uh, working with nice people in government. There is stuff happening at the Library of Congress that you may not be aware of. They were under the rule of kind of a benign but very technophobic person for 30 years and recently got a new Librarian of Congress, and they have gone crazy with APIs. They have put up amazing data. All of it is on GitHub. All of it is the way things work at an institution like the Library of Congress is that like they measure how much use it gets and then they can put that in their report that like we built this API and look at all the people using it, and that actually helps get it funded and get it. So anything you can do to connect to these amazing new sources of information, and a fairly small team there that is really excited about finally being able to use the internet for what it's meant to do, is something I hope that you'll explore when you think about data visualization. Just as a small example, the National Institute for the Humanities has multiple, I think 15 petabytes of newspaper scans, representing just 10% of American newspapers in the 19th century, but that's all online, and they're even willing to send it to you if you send them a truck full of hard disks. So there's there's amazing stuff happening. There's kind of beleaguered islands of Enlightenment values within government, and I really hope that we can help bolster that and figure out how to work constructively with it, with all the tools and cool ideas that we have represented in this room. Thank you for letting me blather at you as the coffee kicks in, and thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you, Mache. Give him a round of applause. There we go. Very good. Yeah, you should follow Mache at Pinboard on Twitter. He's got lots of good opinions, not just what can fit into 15 minutes here. Okay, so yeah, for our next speaker, I'm bringing up Dario Tarabelli. It's a mouthful. I'm sorry, and that's coming from me. Okay, so basically, he is Wikimedia's head of research and father to two wonderful girls over there, setting a very good example for our future. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let Dario take Mache's energy and revolutionary nature. Oh, yeah, very nice. No, but I'll give you one later, Mache. Okay. Uh, all right. And he's going to tell you about all of the untapped potential of Wikipedia's data specifically. All right, everyone give it up for Dario.
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here and to talk about stupid ideas combined with open data and what that can give us to help support our project. So I run the research team at the Wikimedia Foundation. I'm going to say a few words about what we're doing and then give you a sense of open data sets that we release, trying to inspire you by building things with this data. So Wikimedia Research is a team of research scientists, UX researchers, software developers, trying to leverage data for social good. So basically, we have this very large community of readers and a smaller community of contributors, and we're trying to figure out ways in which we can use all these methods and data to grow and nurture this project, which is really a big pillar of the open web. What does it mean in practice? We do quite a lot of research and development, Wikimedia research. We mostly use a set of research and modeling methods combined with open data to try and address some of the big fundamental problems that our communities are facing. And these problems include, for example, identifying and removing biases in Wikipedia, filling gaps in content coverage across the whole of Wikipedia, and making the overall experience of being a good citizen, contributing to a body of open knowledge, something enjoyable and inclusive and as diverse as possible. So these are some of the problems that we're facing in a moment, and I'm going to give you two examples of what we're doing about them. So first, Wikipedia is really hard if you're a newbie. This is my little baby boy, and he doesn't edit Wikipedia. No, he's not actually my little baby boy. It's just a random picture that I found on the internet. But I just wanted to give you a sense of how hard it is for someone who is not already editing Wikipedia to get started on this project. And we know that if you're not a vandal, meaning if you're a good human being trying to edit in good faith Wikipedia, um, the chances that you get reverted on your very first edit grew by 2 to 3 times compared to when you joined the project in the early years. And similarly, your probability of sticking around for more than 2 months has declined dramatically over the years. This is really concerning because we need to have fresh blood and continue to grow a population of contributors. And why is this happening? Does anybody have a guess about why we're experiencing this problem? Facebook, part of the answer, yes. But one of the other parts of the answer that we study quite a lot is the impact of large-scale quality control systems. Um, this is the growth of the active editor population over time. So Wikipedia started going through a phase of exponential growth in the years between 2004 and 2006. And then what happened is that at a given point in time, uh, the fire hose of edits coming in forced the community to think of like a more effective ways of dealing with quality control. And what they did is they came out with some brilliant machine gun solutions that would operate at a large scale to basically deal with all this incoming volume of edits. And this is what happened. Quality control worked pretty well, but the size of the editor population started like declining linearly over time. So basically, quality control gone bananas started really causing the greatest decline in the active editor population of our projects. So we thought about this and what can we really do about this thing? And we thought, well, what if we build an AI to try and socialize and rescue good human beings who are trying to do their best to contribute to open knowledge, and instead of being caught by the firing squad of quality control systems? So that's one of the things that we built. We train a set of machine learning algorithms to detect whether an edit is made in good faith or not. This is data that's been labeled by existing Wikipedians. And what it does is that it's an open API, so you can hit this endpoint, you pass a revision ID. Revision ID is basically a unique identifier of a diff. For example, this is an edit that adds to an article a sentence such as llamas grow on trees. And the API will allow you to answer questions such as, was this edit made in good faith? Is the edit damaging, et cetera, et cetera. And this happens in real time for over 20 language editions of Wikipedia using open data and open source algorithms. The second example of a problem that we're working on is holds. So you may think that Wikipedia is complete if you speak language or German or Spanish or one of these major languages. But if you're not lucky enough to speak one of these major languages, Wikipedia has some tremendous gaps. And I want to show you a few examples of this. So this is a map of all the geotagged articles that exist across all Wikipedia languages. And you see there's a high density for obvious reasons in the Western world. That's areas of the planet for which we have a good coverage, reliable sources, et cetera, et cetera. But this is what happens if you filter this map as a function of the languages in which we have content. So this is the map for English Wikipedia. Again, as you may expect, a high density of content in the US and in parts of Europe. If you look at the word from the angle of Spanish Wikipedia, this is the content you get access to. So there are massive parts of the universe where Spanish Wikipedia has absolutely no content. And things get worse and worse if you look at other languages, such as Portuguese. This is a state of the word knowledge in Portuguese you can access if you speak only Portuguese. And this is what happens if you speak Arabic. And French Wikipedia has 20,000 individual articles on asteroids. But if you're a speaker of Hausa, a language spoken by about 40 million people in Central Africa, there isn't a single article about the universe. Just to give you a sense of like the gaps that we're talking about, when we're looking at Wikipedia from a privileged Western angle, like the one that Magic was talking about, there's a massive need of data science and solutions to try and grow and nurture this project and help us like fix these tremendous gaps in open knowledge. So one small thing that we did at Wikimedia Foundation is to try and think about recommender systems. So we build systems that help you identify any pair of languages in Wikipedia. Currently, we have 295 languages that we support in our projects. And you will specify a source language and a target language, and you'll be able to identify those articles that exist in the source language but are missing in the target language. So this is an example of the English to Korean pair seated with a topic of cheese. And I discovered this morning that Korean Wikipedia doesn't have an entry on goat cheese. How crazy is that? So you can start using that and go and pitch it to a community of bilingual contributors and try and grow like this Wikipedia contents in across the languages. And this operates in any possible direction. So don't just think you can translate content from English to Korean. You can also identify what exists in Korean and doesn't exist in English, and so on. So these are just two examples of how internally we're using data to help like grow and nurture and diversify the world's largest encyclopedia. And again, we're really small. We're a team. I like to give my mother like this statistic where if you look at the ratio between researchers that we have at the foundation and total consumers of content, the ratio is about like 1 to 100 million, considering like the number of people who consume Wikipedia on a monthly basis. So there's work to be done here, and we cannot do this by ourselves. So what I thought I would do in the time that remains is to give you a sense of open data that we have and the opportunities that you have using the power of storytelling and data visualization and data science to help us grow the sum of human knowledge and make it like a more inclusive, more accurate, and more accessible. So here's a few of the data sets that we released recently that I hope to be excited about. The Wikipedia Talk Corpus. A few weeks ago, we announced a big project in collaboration with Jigsaw, where we started modeling algorithms to identify personal attacks and harassment on discussion pages on Wikipedia. Harassment and personal attacks is a big problem on the internet. It's also a big problem on Wikipedia. So we're trying to put some ideas to work in that space. But in the process of doing this, we had to parse and extract all the comments ever made to Wikipedia articles. And in the process, we released an open data set with all the 95 million comments ever posted on discussion pages of English Wikipedia since 2001. That's a pretty massive corpus that is just waiting to be visualized in hackathon. Second, so we receive a shit ton of traffic. The population of contributors, like we said before, is tiny, but Wikipedia is among the top 10 web properties of the planet. And we don't do any kind of crazy third-party tracking. We don't sell your data to anybody else, but we do receive passively request data that we collect in our server logs. So this data tells us a lot about how readers consume Wikipedia content. And one of the datasets that we released is a Clickstream dataset. This Clickstream dataset contains 25 million referrer target pairs that tell you basically what people click on when they visit Wikipedia. And this is extracted from about 7 billion page requests we collected in a given month. And think about it as a marble you can drop anywhere on Wikipedia, and you can follow through to figure out where you'll end up following the most clicked links in any given Wikipedia article. This data has never been visualized before, and I'm waiting for someone to do that. So similarly to this, we also released a data set that we call the navigation vectors. So this is slightly more sophisticated than the Clickstream dataset. It's a dataset resulting from training Word2Vec models on a corpus of 400 million unique browsing sessions. So people open a browser, browse articles in Wikipedia. We can look at the articles that tend to occur in the same sequence within a given session and understand which articles are related with each other. And so we released this corpus that's been trained, like I said, on 400 million unique browsing sessions, and will tell you which articles tend to occur with each other, not based on similarity, not based on links, but based on what people are looking for when browsing Wikipedia. And then I mentioned this project before that we worked on to provide machine learning scoring for the quality of edits. We also released, using the system, a data set that presents the predicted quality class of changes that occur every month across all articles in English, French, and Russian Wikipedia. So you take a snapshot of every single article over time, and you run like the corresponding revision through the system, and you get back a score of the corresponding quality class of these articles. Wikipedians have developed over the years a pretty sophisticated set of quality classes that determine whether an article is a top tier quality or just a stub. And this data set gives you prediction at a very granular level for each single article in these 3 language editions of Wikipedia. And finally, the Wikipedia citation corpus is a corpus that we released that contains um, every single scholarly article identified via a DOI or a PubMed ID, every single preprint with an archive identifier, and every single book identified with an ISBN that has been ever cited or uncited, because very often you also have citations that are removed from Wikipedia, in the English language edition of the project. So this is just about static data sets, but over the course of these 2 days, you'll have a ton of opportunities to learn not just about static data, but also about APIs. And this is one of my favorite APIs. For those of you who know Sparkle, this is going to give you access to the contents of Wikidata. Wikidata is our open knowledge base, and running Sparkle queries will allow you to extract a ton of incredible information from the link data underbelly that powers Wikimedia projects. And so with that, I just want to thank you. Wish you some great hacking time. And if you have questions, you can reach me. I'm not going to be around for the entire event, but drop me a line. I'll be happy to tell you more about what we're doing and what we're looking for. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dario. All right. So, he's got some Twitter information there too if you want to follow him. Yeah. So now I think that we're ready to be in. Oh, they love their daddy. All right. So yeah, we've got we've got lots of time now. Hopefully you have lots of energy because we're about to begin our tutorials, which are going to go through specific ways you can engage with these data sets and you know, actually get started on the many design challenges that exist within the Wikipedia space. So Brennan, if I could get the agenda back up here, I'll give you a quick rundown because it's actually a 2-track thing to sort of parallelize and give you guys the most time for working on stuff. So let's scroll down a little bit here. Is this the right document, Stephen? All right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you know, since we're looking at our to-do and we're airing our dirty laundry here, if somebody wants to design a logo for WDDC, right, that would be really useful even post hoc. So yeah, let's see. So basically, the idea with the tutorials is that we have sort of a basic track and an advanced track. If you are new to Wikipedia, or are mostly a designer, UI person, you know, beginner coder, something like that, then we have a track that'll introduce you to Wikipedia and the basics. If you're someone who already knows what Wikipedia is, then off on the side here we have a large boardroom. It says small room. It's pretty big. You'll see. Where we'll go through the more specific advanced features. So on the basic side, I'll be kicking it off with Wikipedia 101, Wikipedia Basics. You've probably read Wikipedia. Wait, raise your hand if you've never read Wikipedia. None of you should be getting exercise right now. UV, don't do this to me. All right, so, okay, you all think you know what Wikipedia is, but there are some specific terminologies that I want to introduce. So that's what Wikipedia 101 is. Then UV, the troll back there, basically is going to introduce query and pause, which are kind of basic SQL and Python interfaces to Wikipedia's backends. This is a great service that the Wikimedia Foundation provides, and really I use this all the time when developing our Hat Notes Wikipedia projects. Okay, then we have Wikidata. Jens is going to dial in from overseas and going to give you a personal introduction to the structured data backing a lot of Wikipedia, increasing amounts of Wikipedia. And then we'll go into recent changes that is basically a stream, a live stream of Wikipedia data. Maybe you've seen Listen to Wikipedia or Recent Changes Map or projects like this. That's sort of what HatNote ended up being known for. So it's based on it's based on that type of live stream. Over on the advanced side, feel free to hop between these. If one looks interesting, we're going to try to keep them synced so you can attend one and the other. And we're going to be running all of these advanced ones twice. So if you really want to be in 2 hours of tutorials, you can attend all of these and then all of these. All right. Yeah. So we're gonna go over Wikipedia's API. Wikipedia has a huge API, very big, and it takes it's not gonna be able to fit all into 15 minutes, but we have the creator of the majority of it with us right now, so you're talking to the right person. And then Wikimedia Labs and Tools. This is a execution environment. If you're someone who's used to writing code and deploying it, and maybe you know what OpenStack means and that type of thing, maybe Kubernetes, then this is a tutorial for you. Storing and visualizing data on wiki pages. There is actually a declarative syntax rather new to Wikipedia where you can just define some JSON, more or less, and it will display that data. No need to render a graph. Not that we're trying to replace any of you, but there are some data sets out there that we want to basically import quickly and make into graphs. And finally, OAuth. Wikipedia and all of the wiki sites, Wikimedia as a whole is a very large ecosystem, has a lot of users, and if you want to build tools for those users, it's best if you don't have to also build the authorization system. Wikimedia has a great amount of work that they've put into security, and you can leverage that through the OAuth API and build logins for any tools that you build today. So this is more of like the code heavy track, and this is more of the data heavy track is the idea. And the data heavy stuff will happen right here, so you can maybe just stay put. Otherwise, I think maybe we can sort of divvy up, head into the room here. Also, plenty of donuts and coffee if you feel like restocking. Any questions? Anything pressing? Everyone has Wi-Fi passwords? Everyone's on the Slack. If you have questions, Steven's on the Slack. He's manning it. He'll answer them straight away if you don't want to speak up, or if it comes to you later. All right. Well, you all have been very patient so far, and yeah, we're gonna kick in the high gear now. Let me know if there's anything else I could do. All right. Thank you. The Slack is hatnote.slack.com, and if you need an invite, Steven can get that for you. Also, bathrooms are right over there on the left. You pass them on the way in.